Hi there. Welcome to another edition of DesignSpark Ask the Expert, where today in the studio we have Festo. We're going to be talking about electrical automation, and I have Colin Burke from Festo. Hi, Colin. Would you like to introduce yourself to DesignSpark?
Yeah, thanks, Greg. Thanks for the opportunity to talk to you today. I'm Colin Burke. I'm from business development in the electrical automation part here at Festo in our headquarters just outside Stuttgart in Germany. And my main task is supporting the electric automation business here at Festo across the complete product portfolio.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for joining us. I just want to get into it straight away in terms of electrical automation. Obviously, Festo is a well-known, renowned brand in automation. A lot of people actually know you for pneumatics, but I'm just wondering, could you give us a product overview of your key products, the key features, and what Festo bring to the market?
Yeah, gladly. It's something that we're often confronted with, that Festo equals pneumatics. But for over 30 years now, that's no longer the case. We're a total automation supplier. Pneumatics, of course, is a core of our business, but from the electric automation area, we've got four main areas. We've got electromechanical actuators, we've got motors and drives, we've remote IOs, and we've controls. And all of these supported with software tools for operating, commissioning, the total complete life cycle. And of course, we integrate then with the other parts of Festo, especially pneumatics. Maybe we'll talk a bit more of that in a while. But also we've got life tech and process automation and even didactics here at Festo. So we're trying to provide the customers the complete one-stop shop.
Fantastic. I do like that phrase, the one-stop shop. So I guess moving into the conversation, obviously in the world of automation, one of the important factors is integration with existing protocols. So how does Festo support integration, for example, into existing systems, but also if installers are looking at new builds, what advantages do they get by featuring Festo?
Well, moving on from the one-stop shop, we have to remind ourselves the pneumatics were always the core of Festo, and we build on that, but we use the electrical automation side to combine pneumatics with electrics. Going forward with the electrical portfolio, we've concentrated on the main bus protocols, so Profinet, EtherCAT, Ethernet IP, and also Modbus. So to integrate into machines from a software side, we provide our customers with these four bus protocols.
Mm-hmm.
Also, it's not only hardware that we do, it's also the software. So using our software tools, the customers then can integrate that into main systems like Siemens-TIA or TwinCAT from Beckhoff or Logic 5000 from Allen Bradley. From the hardware side, our motors and drives, our servo drives, they're multi-protocol. So it means you have the one part number for a certain power class, and it speaks all three languages, as it were. So it also helps, especially if we've got machine builders who their end users in one regional area might have Siemens as PLC supplier, in another region, maybe across the Atlantic, Allen Bradley are there.
Mm-hmm.
It allows our customers to standardize everything underneath the PLC, from the motors and drives, over the remote IOs, with the valve terminals, down to mechanics, even down to the workpiece. And you can relatively simply change basically the bus protocol that they're using. So it's the one part number.
Yeah.
So that's one of the advantages, and we get good feedback for that as well.
Yeah, that's really good to hear because I guess the important word there is standardize, making life easier for installers. Like you mentioned, they're not just looking after one site; it could be many sites over different geographical regions,
Yep.
and to bring that into the fore and have standardization obviously helps to save cost and obviously makes installation more efficient and easier to manage. One of the
Mm-hmm.
things that you mentioned was tools. So
Yeah.
when it comes to industrial automation, ease of use, tools and support, they feature very heavily, obviously, when it comes to the installation and the commissioning, obviously making life easier and getting systems up and running quickly. Tell me more about Festo's commissioning software automation suite and what does it look like and how does it actually help users?
Yeah, well, if I just take a small step back, we've done a huge amount of work in the last 10 years. So we've moved on from single products to a whole platform idea. So we started with our motors and drives, where we turned around and we said, okay, we want a uniform platform. So it doesn't matter if you've got a 150 watt small 24 volt a stepper-based servo drive up to 12 kilowatt servo drive. It's the same firmware, it's the same chipset, it's the same everything. So we're going for the standardization across the hardware. And the add-on to that is, as you said, the automation suite. It's one piece of software that we use to commission everything. So it's servo drives, valve terminals, remote IOs. It's got a topology editor in it. You can click and drag. And because we know our products from the workpiece to just under the controls area of the PLC, we have all the data in the background. So it's relatively simple using Automation Suite to either via the type code or the part number, you type in what it is and it'll pull the data. So you tell what's connected. If we're looking at a cmmt servo drive, for example, you tell what's connected to it. You'll have a certain cable, because we also know, the losses over the cable. You'll have a certain motor. Hopefully, the customer will also take our mechanics, the gearboxes, and you can also tell it down to what it's going to do. And it'll take all that data, and in a few clicks, you've then got the control parameters. And that is when we show our customers that they usually, the chin just drops, because it's such a time saver. You're not looking at individual data sheets from individual products, not looking at motor torque curves. You're not there trying to mix and match and fine tuning. You've got like between 5 and 10 clicks and the first movement is running. And that is a massive time saver. What the Festo Automation Suite also does is, to get this first movement, you don't need the PLC. You can run it on a normal PC, a laptop. You can also put simple record tables into it. Many customers see this advantage where they don't have to take the programmer, because the guys who speak Siemens, the guys who speak Allen Bradley, the guys who speak Beckhoff, they're rare and they're very busy. And when you have a certain part of the machine builder, they're putting stuff together, they want to see, does it work? Most of them have access to a computer. They plug it in and they do the first movements via Automation Suite for this sub-assembly. They make sure it's running, they make sure there's no kinks, they make sure the energy chains are running good, and later on is when they need the programmer. And then moving on, we don't forget the programmer. Once you've it all set up in Automation Suite, we appreciate that the customers, they don't really want to spend much time in Festo software. The whole machine will run on a Siemens or an Allen Bradley. So the Festo Automation Suite, once your configuration is done, with a couple of clicks, you go, please generate the function block and the description file for TIA, for example. And then you export that and you can import it into TIA, and then the programmer's back in his known environment. It pops up like a generic Siemens or a generic Allen Bradley or a generic Beckhoff, and you're away from the Festo software. You know it works, the initial commissioning is done, and they can do the cool stuff, making the total machine work. So that's huge time savings and ease of use for also programming guys.
Yeah. That's a really, really important point, obviously, is for those guys to be familiar with what they know. And it's not a case of, learning something completely new. Like you mentioned, you can use the automation suite, but then the delivery of what is coming out of that is back into what they're regularly using on that daily basis. So in terms of ease of use, that sounds like a really compelling case.
Yeah, we're getting good feedback from the market for it, especially if you've got special machine builders who sometimes they try to standardize as many assemblies as possible, but the end user always wants something different. That saves them so much time. They know the basic electromechanical setup from Festo will work, and they do some small tweaking, and sometimes they don't even have to go into the Festo environment to stay in the higher level PLC environment. So that is pretty cool. They like that. And the thing with the Automation Suite is it's not only a commissioning tool for motors and drives. Our remote IOs and even our valve terminals, it's all into one platform. So once you've got your topology set up, you've all the Festo products set up, you then get your function block which is then not only talking to the motors and drives, it's talking to your remote IOs and it's talking to the valve terminals. Because one thing that Festo does is integrate remote IOs and bus nodes and things like that onto the valve terminals as well.
Yeah.
And so that's a pretty cool product.
Yeah. Actually, you've just touched upon there something which has been curious in my mind, because in the previous conversations I've had with Festo, I've had both of those centering on pneumatic systems. And I was just curious to find out how Festo approached both pneumatics and electrical automation. The question was, are these separated dependent on the operation, or is it an offering of equivalent functions but using a different choice of medium? So in terms of pneumatic and electrical automation, you mentioned there about the valve terminals. I'm just wondering about crossover points. Are they two separate entities, or can you combine and cross over?
One of Festo's main advantages is that we're the only company who can provide the technology mix in such a wide spectrum. Yeah, we can have pneumatics, we can have electrics. I've mentioned the other areas as well, down to process automation. Of course, an internal structure will show we need specialists in one area and specialists in the other area. But looking at the customer side, we're pushing for one Festo, a total automation supplier, to supply this optimal technology mix. And that's why things like our tools, they accept both. So, we want to make the commissioning, make the selection, make the operation as easy as possible for these customers. So we're trying to seamlessly integrate them as much as possible. And this work will never be done. We're all the time moving forward. We're all the time coming out with new software tools and things like that. But we're the only ones to have the technology mix. And the key to this is the valve terminal. And Festo was the inventor of the valve terminal. We've been redefining the valve terminal for since it was brought out in the mid-80s. We now integrate more and more intelligence onto the valve terminal, and connectivity is the main thing. So that's why we say we have this seamless connectivity philosophy. So we're all the time trying to make this connection between them as easy as possible. And it also goes down to, Greg, if I can just mention this, these days in the industry, pneumatics are getting a bit of a bad rep. People are going, oh, sustainability is not so good for the environment, etc., etc. That's a very tricky generalization. The truth is somewhere in between, as most things. Pneumatics are great for certain applications. Electrics are great for certain applications. We can mix and match. We can provide the customer the optimal mix. We have tools to optimally do the electrics. We have tools that are optimally set up your pneumatics. Going forward in the coming years, we'll slowly integrate those tools. So, we're pushing all the software tools to talk to each other. And in the future, we'll have them where you just ask a question and it'll give the optimal mix between them. And when you think about it, going back to the sustainability, the power to build in space that you get from pneumatics, you cannot do it electrically. The flexibility that you get with electrics, you can't do it with pneumatics. We provide both. One example is if you've got quick, short, repetitive movements with high frequencies, pneumatics are great. If you want positioning or higher loads, electrics are great. Even if you think of an application where there's maybe a handling or a sort of a Cartesian robot system, if you want an electrical gripper, you've got energy chains, you've got cabling, you've got even the gripper itself for the same power and the same flexibility, it'll be a chunkier thing. So you're bringing this dead weight over and back every cycle. With pneumatics, you've got light tubing and you have a very light gripper at the end. You're not bringing this dead weight. So which is more sustainable in that way? So it's a very tricky thing, but Festo is one of the few who can provide the optimal technology mix of both technologies going forward. Yeah, and Greg, another good example of these crossover products where we're looking at the pneumatic world, the electric world, and how we can join both together and add value is our simplified motion series products. So with these products, they are electromechanical actuators with integrated motors and motor controllers on the product. So it's one single part number with all these three functions integrated. But the cool thing on it is that you can set them up as if they were a pneumatic actuator. So they have simple IOs, 24 volts, IO switching, and IO link on board. And they have a very small and simple user interface over 3 buttons and 10 LEDs on the outside. And that's how you set up the speed, position, a transition from movement to force, and all these kind of things. So using a pneumatic thought process of I'm putting pneumatics into the machine and I'm wiring up the valve, it's basically the same steps, note that the movement is electrical. If the customer then wants a bit more flexibility, there's IO Link on board, and using an IO Link master, preferably from ourselves, but from anyone on the market, you can then use intermediate positioning as well. So it's a crossover product where you've got simple movements, simple setup, but also the flexibility that you get from electrical automation as opposed to pneumatic automation, those being speed, positioning, and transition from movement to force applications. And also going back to our philosophy of seamless connectivity and everything moving together, these can also be set up in the Festo automation suite. They can also be integrated into the Festo automation suite because our IO Link masters are also on the Festo automation suite. So it's the one tool for all the products.
Yeah, that's a really kind of great holistic view when you think about sustainability, because the way you're describing that to me is, you can have as much forward thinking about sustainability as you like, but if you don't consider the options of how you integrate that whole automation process, you may actually be finding that you're missing out on key areas where you should consider that. So in terms of that kind of crossover point, to take that wider view, I think that's really kind of refreshing to hear. And optimally, you will get to the solution that you're required if sustainability is one of your key considerations for your industrial application.
Yep. And at the end of the day, it's always about the application. The application will always tell what the optimal mix is and how you want it. So at the end of the day, physics always catches up with us. You're always tricking cycle time, load, energy consumption, things like that, and also cost at the end of the day. And we will try our best. And with Festo's portfolio, we believe you can mix and match technologies, you can mix and match software side, you can mix and match everything to get the optimal for you at that moment in time.
Fantastic. The other thing I want to just well, there's quite a few things we could talk about, but I'm interested to hear more about the IO connectivity. Remote IO is obviously something that needs particular attention when we're thinking about robust operation and data. So tell me more about Festo's remote IO system, the CPX API. What does that provide as a key part of the overall operation?
The CPX API, it's actually part of a family. We've API and APA. And in the background, going back to the philosophy I was speaking about earlier of seamless connectivity and having a platform idea, it's the same chipset on both. What does that mean? We have remote I/O with process data up to 2 kilobytes, data rates up to 200 megabytes per second, cycle time 250 microseconds, so it's future-proof. But looking from the hardware side, we've got decentralized, that's the CPX API, which you mentioned earlier. So they're remote I/O modules. You see them on the market. They can be put anywhere on the machine, IP65, sometimes IP67. But we also have a modular setup, and that's the APA. And it really is only a hardware difference. In the background, the software, the chipset, the communication, the setup tools, it's always the same. What's cool with the CPX APA is that's what you can integrate onto the valve terminal. So we've got 3 options. Also going back to this mix and match open philosophy, you have the decentralized CPX API, put them around the machine as you need. You can have up to 50 meters cable between them. And from one bus node, so one entry point to your PLC, you can have a further 79 modules on the one thing daisy chained throughout your machine. And then you can also go on to the CPX APA, which is just a modular, it's just a block with all the remote IOs together, either standalone or also on the valve terminal. And you can mix and match. You can go into one, out from the other. So you can put the bus node on a valve terminal, start with the valve terminal, go down, get all your sensors close to that, and then take one cable and put it 50 meters away and get some sensors from the other part of the machine. We also have 4-port IO link masters on the same platform. So we even have setups where the valve terminal has an IO link master, which is then controlling our electromechanics via IO link, our simplified motion series. So, 10 years ago, who would have thought of valve terminal controlling mechanics, electromechanics? But this is the mix and match that we can provide. And at the end of the day, going back to our friends, the programmers, it's one address on the PLC. He's talking to one bus node, and then you've this. It's like a spider's web. It's all over. You've got all these 50-meter cable lengths, up to 79 modules. And the valve terminal, on one valve terminal, if you imagine a valve terminal, you've got the valves here on the one side, and then you've got the IO part on the other side, and you can go up to, I think it's 14, 15 modules. So biggest valve terminal, we won't see it in the camera. It's a meter and a half long nearly, with all these inputs, outputs. And the philosophy is, if you're using pneumatics, you're moving something, and you've got the signals and the switches near that, so you can just keep it in one area. So it's a nice product, and we're bringing out new modules all the time. In the coming 12 months, we're bringing out digital I/O. We're bringing out with M12, M8 connectors, configurable, analog I/O, temperature things. They're all coming into. So we're not finished, and it'll be a long time before we're finished.
Yeah. If you ever finish, to be honest, as you mentioned earlier, things are constantly changing as we move forward. So a lot of what we're hearing, I understand, obviously, from an automation perspective. I'm going to say, for me, Festo sounds like it's total automation, all the way from the products, but also the tools and services and the interfaces that you guys are offering. From your large, extensive range, I do want to come back to an area which is quite close to my heart, and that's motor control. And within automation, obviously, it's an area that requires a lot of consideration, not in terms of only performance, but obviously operational efficiency. And you mentioned precision. So I'm interested to hear more about the CMMT servo drive range and what users can expect from that range.
The CMMT servo drive range, it's relatively new. We only brought it to market in 2018. I was mentioning earlier, we've got 10 part numbers which will cover from 150 watt 24 volt DC up to 3-phase 12 kilowatt. And they are multi-protocol. So they've got Ethernet IP, EtherCAT, and Profinet. So with these 10 part numbers, you can have the whole range. And we didn't stop there. We brought out motors to match. So we've got EMMT motors, stepper-based, servo-based, from IP20 up to IP65. We've got flange sizes from 40 millimeter square up to 190 millimeter square, all name a standard mounting patterns. And we have single multi-turn encoders on them. So batteryless encoders, no need for this reference every time you start the machine. And from 2025 in February, so we've got, it's now late 2024 times of filming, so we got another maybe 2 months to go. We're bringing out advanced safety. So we're replicating 9 of those 10 part numbers. They're all the asynchronous servo drives, not the stepper-based ones. And they will have a safety part number. So what that means is then you get full advanced safety with safe limited seed, safe stop 1, safe stop 2, safe operating stop, both hardwired and bus controlled. And from by the end of 2025, we'll have it bus controlled on all 3 families: your ProfiSafe, SIP safety, safety over EtherCAT. So that's the next big feature that we're bringing out. And of course, we have the safety motors to match, so with the safety encoders. And they go right up to performance level E, so the highest level possible.
Right, yeah. Fantastic. Again, in terms of performance levels, obviously that all adds into efficiency and sustainability as a desired outcome. So
Yep.
on this range of this CMMT,
hmm
one of the things I'm just interested to hear more about is the starter kits. It's always a good first introduction to the range. So can you tell me what users can expect from those starter kits?
Well, even better. This is what he looks like. So the starter kit, the idea of the starter kit, it's as you can see here, you get our smallest servo drive, stepper based, the motor and the cable. I'll just give you a quick look, see what it looks like here. So here he is. It's a nice small thing. You can run it on 24 volts. The idea is to get customers, new customers, people who might not know Festo servo drives that well, get them acquainted with not only the individual product, but the philosophy, the whole ecosystem. So yes, you get a motor, yes, you get the cable and the stepper-based servo drive, but it also gives you access then to the Festo automation suite, how you can set it up. There are QR codes on the box, so you can go onto our online presence where you've got application notes, all the documentation. And the idea is just to reinforce and to show the proof of what I've been talking about for the last 20 odd minutes, that we have an open philosophy, that our tools are easy to use, and the integration into the likes of TIA, the likes of Logix 5000, the likes of TwinCAD, that it is as simple as I've been talking about. So the idea is to go towards the mechanical buying center, so the guys who put it together see what's the product look like, but also to the electromechanicals right up to the machine programmers. Because it's always fun when you're making a machine. Who has the last laugh, as it were? Who says what goes? The mechanics guy wants things to fit nice and easily. The programming guy wants them to be easy to program and to work. And there's always how could I say, not a conflict, but there's a conflict of interests.
Yeah.
Who did it? So we take the box, have a look at it, try it out for yourselves, see the advantages for yourselves. And that's why it's also priced in such a way where it just should encourage people who maybe have a doubt, get one of these, plug it in, start playing with it, and get used to our environment.
Fantastic. That's certainly, obviously, a very good place to start if anybody who is unfamiliar with Festo electrical automation, for example. So today, just a quick recap. We've covered the process of how you are actually offering services and support through your automation suite, but then also let's talk about things like the optimal mix between pneumatics and electrical automation. You mentioned smart valves. Is there anything else that you want to just cover before we finish? I think it's been a great conversation, and I'd love to have you back on DesignSpark to talk more about this, but I just wondered if there's any closing points that you would like to just either reiterate or summarize.
Well, the main message is this seamless connectivity thinking. So our idea at Festo is someone who's trying to get an electromechanical movement for a machine, make that initial movement as easy as possible, and then they can do the cool stuff, getting the whole machine to run. Sustainability is a big issue going forward. There are also legal requirements going forward. We are on that, even down to our motors and drives. The CMMTs, they have the smallest footprint in the market. They take less space in the cabinet. The high power ones, they use silicon carbide technology. What does that mean? They don't run as hot. We're not wasting as much energy. You need less cooling in your cabinet. You can even go for a smaller cabinet, and you got DC linking, so you can get energy recuperation. So it's the physical cables are set up that you just, with very small cables, link them together, and if they're smart enough to accept energy coming from the application. And going forward, we are bringing out new products all the time. It'll always be on this platform idea. The next big things at the end of next year will be decentralized motors and drives, where you get the electronics piggybacking the motor, and it'll be on this, and the whole idea is on the same platform. So if you've set up a CMMT, if you've used your starter kit to get it up and running, generally it'll be the same setup, even if you have a decentralized setup. So we've a lot done, but we've a lot more to do.
Sounds a really exciting time for the next couple of months for you guys, and hopefully, Colin, maybe we can pick the story up again and have a refresh. But thanks for your time today. I've really enjoyed this discussion, and I hope we can have you on DesignSpark again sometime soon.
Thank you, Greg. Appreciate having a chance to come on here, and it was excellent. Thank you very much.